live happily ever after. Yeah, that after retirement, the happily ever after, you never know what happens after until you start experiencing it. I've witnessed too many people experience it, and it wasn't really the best thing that they wanted. I mean, oh gosh, you ever worked at a job and the senior has to come work at that job because they can't afford to pay their bills with their Social Security? 9 out of 10 times, they're grumpy old people who you don't want to be around because they're mad that they're 70 years old and working.
Well, that's what a lot of us are, groomed to do. It's so. I'm
That's
glad.
a nice, cute word, groomed. No, we're trained.
I'm glad. I'm glad to see at least our environment or our circle changing, because it's helping our children to see something different. Rather than just go to work or go to school, go to college, get a good career, and retire. We're introducing them to a lot of different entrepreneurs, so they have a lot of things they can decide if that's the route they want to go on, or if they do want to be a business owner. So,
yep, and that's the thing. I know myself personally, I'm a strong advocate for entrepreneurship, but my young brother, he has a fashion show coming up next week, and his clothing line is called Somebody Gotta Do It. And so, me being an entrepreneur and pushing everybody to be an entrepreneur is more so to expose them to that life, as opposed to what we're traditionally taught and groomed, as Lynette said, to be. And so, with that mentality, somebody gotta do it is a real strong thing, because guess what? I want you all to own your own businesses and write your stories and change the world in your own way. But everybody's not built for that. So, somebody got to go be a nurse. Somebody got to go be a doctor. Somebody got to go be a lawyer. Somebody got to go manage the McDonald's. I mean, somebody got to do it. So, it's okay if you're not built for it, but we all really need to walk in our purpose. That's the main goal at the end of the day, is just really walking in your purpose and doing what you are called to do.
Yeah, and one thing I just want to clarify, like you keep wording it as, some of us aren't built for it, and it's true. Some of us aren't made to be an entrepreneur, just like some of us aren't made to be a nurse. I don't have it in me to go to school for a doctor or a lawyer. I don't have it in me to go to school for all them years. I just don't. I got my associate's degree a few years back. I wanted to go back for my bachelor's degree immediately after, but I didn't do that immediately after because I just didn't have it in me at that time. Like you said, it's important to walk in your purpose. So what I'm doing currently is what I'm doing, building my business and everything. So once that's more established and I have that at a place where I want it to be, then I can go back to school and focus on school, instead of being in school and struggling and trying to work and pay for school and do all this other stuff, So, yeah, everything ain't for everybody.
Yep, sure ain't.
But then on the first note, somebody got to do it.
Exactly, and everything isn't for everybody. And a few years ago, I realized that working for someone else wasn't for me. And, I started to transition into not working for other people. And I mean, my whole thing, and a lot of people may feel similar, I was tired of asking for permission to be a father. That's one thing that drove me insane, especially me being in warehousing back in the day. It was strictly on a seniority basis. So, if I wanted a vacation on this certain day, I wanted to take off on these certain days, I had to hope and pray that somebody who's been there longer than me don't take off on those same days. And it's like, yo.
Yeah, that's a mess.
Listen, my kid is having an event at school that I want to go to. I'm going. And then, you run that risk of, well, you're not being approved to go. So if you go, you may be terminated. Man, listen. All right, you know what? Cool. I figured it out. Working is not for me.
Yeah.
I just couldn't deal with it. So, you talked about the way we're taught and the way our minds are as a child, especially being in an environment that a lot of people that we've been around is in. What was that childhood dream that you had?
My childhood dream, I've always been a helper in every stage of my life. Even from a younger child, I remember I used to get in trouble for giving my clothes away. Like, I barely had any myself, but if I saw that somebody else needed them, then I would give them away. My childhood dream, I remember wanting to be a pediatrician, because I thought a pediatrician, I loved going to the doctor, because my doctor was so cool and they were so nice and so funny, and I found out that they were pediatricians. So I said, oh, cool, I could do this too. So then a little later on down the line, I found out how much school you had to do. Then I found out also that being a pediatrician didn't just mean like the little cute little practices that kids go to like annually, and you do the height and weight and that kind of thing. I found out that you also have to like deal with blood, and the kid sometimes comes to you crying because they're hurting and stuff like that, and I didn't want to deal with that part, so I changed it. I think somewhere in my teenage years I wanted to be a psychologist. Then I changed it to child psychology. I can help people, I can help kids. I see this whole vision in my head. I'm sitting there in my office and this kid comes in and we sit on the couch and we just talk about some stuff, talk about what's going on at home, how can I help you, that kind of thing. Then I went to college and I started taking classes in the psychology field, and it was like, I'm not really interested in all the psychologists of the past and learning and figuring out what they did and what year they were born, and this stuff is pretty boring. How about I change my mind again? So no, my childhood dream was not any of the stuff that I'm doing now. Right. I wanted to write, but that wasn't really a career thing. That was more so, I just want to write, whether it be poetry or just writing my journal or writing short stories or whatever the case is. I've always wanted to write. I've always written. I have a poem somewhere floating around. I don't even know which poem it is. In a like one of those big expensive collections of poetry, big leather bound books that I had published when I was about 16 years old, but the book was like $100, and we couldn't afford it, so and they didn't give us, like, I think that was the discount. So the book is somewhere out there, and we'll name it.
All right, so this show is awesome, y'all, and this is exactly what I expected. People are probably thinking, oh, he has his wife on as his first guest. Oh, he knows everything. I'm learning stuff, y'all. I'm learning stuff I didn't even know. That's the point of these questions. Okay, so as you started to grow, you went through school. Your mind changed a lot, obviously. When you finished school, or when you finished school at the time, I don't even know what to go with you. What field did you get into?
So I did psychology when I was right after I came out of high school and went into college. I did psychology for that one semester at Kutztown University. Then after Kutztown University, I went into the military because I figured at that point college wasn't for me. I was young. I wasn't really mature enough for it. So I went into the military. I loved that. I was in the medical administration field. Came out, and that's a few years after that, I wound up going back to college for business management and entrepreneurship. I have no idea what sparked that in me at that time. I knew a couple people who were entrepreneurs, but it still really wasn't a passion of mine. I kind of sort of thought about maybe owning a business. Actually, at that time, no, I didn't want to own a business. I wanted to run someone else's business. So I wanted to be like the executive director of somebody else's business. So I figured that I would need to know how to run a business. So that's why I went into business management. I said, I might as well do a minor in entrepreneurship just in case something comes up. So that's the direction that I went.
Okay, so with that, you ended up in social services. That's what field you started working in.
Yes.
Why did that field appeal to you?
Well, did I tell you I didn't even want to get into social services when I first got into it? It didn't appeal to me at all. This was all God's doing. Every single social service organization that I worked for, I pretty much began working for them by first being a client. So my very first social service position was I was working in the Earn Center, which is a program for people who are receiving cash benefits from welfare. So I was receiving cash benefits. I was in this program, and every day in this program, I would come professionally dressed. I would come into the office, and I would have my portfolio under my arm. I had on my slacks and my heels and my button up and my blazer or whatever, every single day in this program. And I remember the director came in one day. She came in from wherever she was. I think a different office she usually worked out of. She came into the office, and she came up to me and asked me some kind of question. But it was a question it was supposed to be directed to someone who worked there. And I told her, I'm sorry, I have no idea, I don't work here, I'm a client. And she didn't believe me. I kept telling her, no, I'm a client here, I don't work here. And she offered me a job at the Earn Center that she worked at, which was a different site than where I was. So I began working with her maybe 2 weeks after that.
Nice.
Later on down the line, I think that organization wound up closing down. After being laid off from that job, I fell behind on my rent. Someone told me about an organization named Youssef that could help me with my rent at the time. Went into Youssef, found out that they were hiring. Actually, the person that told me about the program also told me they were hiring too. I went in that morning, got the assistance for my rent. I went home, I changed my clothes, I went back in for my interview, I got the job, I started working there a couple weeks later. So I stayed there for about 4 years. Currently, I work for LAHEAP, and LAHEAP is something that I've used pretty much every year. You know, it's just an assistance program for people who are lower income. So that's something, you know, that I was using all in the past for years, so I always knew about that. So every social service organization that I've worked in, I've utilized at some point in my life, and I love it because I'm able to meet people where they are. Basically, you know, I can talk to them, I can relate to them, I understand why they come in frustrated, I understand why they come in ready to cuss me out, even though I didn't do anything. Mm-hmm. But because of that, because I've been in their situation, I'm able to kind of calm them down and help them to leave a lot better than when they came in.
Definitely.
So no, I didn't want to do social services. God made me do it.
God made you do it. Yep, yeah. I mean, judging by the story, you know, you were definitely placed in those situations by divine purpose. Yeah. Plain and simple. And, you know, a lot of times we overlook that and the way our lives go and the things that happen in our lives, we just think it just happens by chance or it just so happened. But listening to that, you can definitely see that it was a reason for everything to play out the way it did, because it took you to where you are now. Mm-hmm. Pretty much. Okay, so that's good stuff. That's definitely good stuff. So I wanna really talk about a little bit more deeper. I want to go a little deeper with you right now. Mm-hmm. So, you know, we've talked about environment on this show already, and how important and vital that is in your growth. You know, the environment that you're in and the people that you're around. Mm-hmm. So when you understand that you're a product of your environment, and we all are. And we are back live. I apologize for that. I don't know what happened. Just got disconnected. But we were talking about being a product of your environment. And, you know, we are all a product of our environment. Whether it is us falling into the environment and saying, you know what, this is the environment that I'm in. This is all I see. This is all I know. So I'm just going to just jump right in and do what I see. Or you go the opposite way and you say, you know what, I'm not too much of a fan of this environment. I can do better than this. And so you go the completely opposite way. But at the end of the day, we are literally all a product of our environment. So understand